Hi, this is Audrey with the Creator's Attic. Today I want to discuss techniques on how to dye with various juices. We're going to try, or I'm going to show you how I dye with blueberry juice in a very non-messy way. And I'm also going to show you, we're kind of going to experiment together with some real, like reduced raspberries that have been strained. However, it still has some sediment in the bottom, so sometimes that can happen when you strain it through your cheesecloth. So I'm going to strain it again into a little bit more so we can play with that today. It produces a beautiful color like this purple, and here is my blueberry paper. So you can tell the different shades. One is this is some of the blueberry paper I've already dyed. And this is one that I stuck in my raspberry juice, but I hadn't strained it, so I wanted to just get kind of a taste for what the color was going to look like, or an idea. But first of all, I want to discuss the blueberry juice. You can't just use any blueberry juice. It needs to be 100% no added sugar blueberry juice. And this one, this brand, I'll put it up here so you can see it, is 100% blueberry juice with no added sugars. So my paper came out a beautiful color without it being sticky. And it carries kind of like, it's almost like having scented paper, because it definitely for sure smells like blueberries. Just like your coffee dyed paper will smell like coffee, and it'll kind of fade over time. But anyway, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you, these came from reduced raspberries. So what you want to do is you want to just put a little saucepan and dump in the amount of raspberries you want. This was about 3/4 of a pint of berries, and I got this much juice. You could put just a tish of water because the raspberry juice gets a little thick, but you just put it in there, kind of bring it to a boil, and then let it simmer for a little while, and then because you don't want to lose too much moisture in there, and you may have to add a tablespoon or so, or or maybe 2 teaspoons or something of water, but you don't want to water it down too much. But this is a little bit thicker than the blueberry juice. Also, there is still some sediment, even though I strained it through my cheesecloth. So I'm going to, first of all, I want to strain out my raspberry juice, and then I will get to the easy method that I use with my blueberry and with the raspberry juice. So the blueberry juice, like you can see, it came in a bottle, but my raspberries were done from real berries. So, fresh berries or whatever. But okay, so I just have a piece of cheesecloth, and I just have it doubled up, and I have my little handy silicone funnel here, and I'm just going to put it down, and then to keep it from slipping, because that's how the pulp kind of comes through, is I'm just going to wrap it around my funnel with this and give it a little bit of room. And I'm just going to wrap a rubber band around the funnel a little bit to hold that cheesecloth in place, and then I'm just going to strain it through quickly. I may need to do this slow, but I just really want to make sure that I'm not getting any more sediment in here. So you may just kind of help it along here a little bit to strain. I do have this, like I said, I think I already said it is, I have doubled up the cheesecloth. Now it's flowing a little bit more freely. And the reason why it's doing this like it is because there is still just a tiny amount of pulp, and it's been sitting for a while, so most of the pulp will be at the bottom, but I don't want any of this pulp. Because if I wanted to put it through I don't want the pulp on my paper, and secondly, if I want to put some in my spray bottle for smaller jobs, I could have it. So that was that easy, and I did make a little mess, but if you'll be using I'm going to be showing you how I use a cookie tin to do this, so I'm just going to take this off, and I can just throw this away or whatever later, but I'm going to put that out of the way. And then I'm going to show you I guess I want to go ahead and experiment with my raspberry juice. I'm so excited with my raspberry, to do my raspberry juice. And since I already have some in the pan, I'll kind of show you what what you can do with the raspberry juice. But okay, so I thought I was prepared with everything, but let me tell you a little bit more of what I have down here. I have on a hard floor, like a hard wooden floor, I have a party tablecloth laid out, and you can get these at Walmart for 40.5 square feet, so that's a lot. And you can divide them into halves or quarter them and dye probably close to 40 to 50 sheets of paper on them, and let's let them dry, and then that's a no mess. But I also am using it to put my cookie sheet on. Now, I want to show you the blue. Actually, I do want to show you the blueberry method first, just because I know it works. And then we'll go with our little raspberry juice experiment. So I'm just going to take a paper towel that I always have standing by, just in case, and I'm going to wipe out this non-stick cookie pan that I have. And this keeps you from wasting your kind of pricey juices. So you can get quite a few papers out of just doing a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour enough in my, you can see how much kind of came out in my tray, and I'm going to swirl it around until it covers the entire bottom. Now, I don't mind getting my hands, you know, in the dye, but if you're picky about, you know, your nails, or, you know, you don't want to run around with some blueberry stained hands, you might want to wear like some rubber gloves. But here is this, and I brought everything but the paper over here, so I'm going to grab some paper very fast. Okay, and I'm going to come back in and show you, because you're going to want to keep swirling this in the process. So you want to make sure, though, that you have a good coating on the bottom. So I think I may just put just a little bit more. You don't want your paper just saturated, because it takes longer to dry and you're wasting too much juice. So, okay, so it's about like this. That's good, just a thin layer. And then you just set your paper down in it, and we're just gonna kind of pat it like this. And then I'm gonna go to the other side and flip it over. And at first it comes out with this gorgeous pinkish color, but as it dries, it starts to turn into the the blue color that looks more like the skin on a blueberry. Okay, so I've done this, and now what I'm going to do is just make sure both sides got covered, and I'm just going to shake it out a little bit, and I'm going to lay it on my plastic tarp. And I'm just going to allow that to dry, air dry. I made the mistake of trying to, let's stick a piece of trim in there too. I wanted to do that. I made the mistake of trying to use my heat gun to kind of hurry up the process. Stick a piece of white crocheted lace in here and get some of the color from that. I'm just so curious. This is a way you can mop up extra juice too. I'm going to try it with a piece of white crochet lace, and it doesn't take a lot of blueberry juice, as you'll be able to see, to get quite a few things dyed. So just with this, you can just lay this across and then just kind of wring it out. And that is a gorgeous piece of lace done, and that's the white lace. So I'm going to lay this aside, and we'll take a peek at it as it dries during the video. Okay, I'm going to show you once again. I'm going to come back. I'm going to swirl this around, and I'm going to show you what we do. Stay around, because I do want to show you what happens when it gets lower, what you may have to do to get as much juice out of this tray as possible. But I'm just going to put this back in, maybe swirl it around a little bit to really get the whole paper. And then the thing about this cookie sheet is great because the juice kind of runs to the sides, so it's not just saturating. But if you want to bring, use your hands to just kind of make sure that it gets good and settled in there. And then you'll come out, and like I said, you don't want to put so much juice in here that you are just drowning your paper, because it will really waste your blueberry juice, take too long to dry, and it's not cheap, like as cheap as coffee. So here's another one. And I can see up here already, let me see if I can get this juice off my hand and show. You can see up here already that they're drying. This one has a little bit of the light shining on it, so it has a light, but you can see this one's already starting to turn a little bit blue, whereas, here we go. See how they're starting to turn? This is the recent one. It's kind of a pinkish, but then it ends up drying into a darker blue. And of course my lamp is making it look shiny, but it's not shiny. Okay, so continue on doing this you'll just continue doing this until until all of your juice is gone. You can continue to add juice, but I really like to get as much out of this as I can, and we don't have that much in here. So speaking of dyeing with other things, I've dyed with, or I want to try dyeing with onion skin and with beets and with avocado, but I kind of got sidetracked with the blueberry juice. So, okay, I'm going to take the rest of this blueberry juice out, and kind of pour it back into my bottle here using my funnel. I do want to try to see what it looks like on an off-white or a beige piece of crochet before I completely clean this up, because I think you've seen enough. You just continue to swirl this, and you may have to help it until just about all of your juice is gone. And if you don't want to, dye as many papers, you can just funnel it back into your bottle. And unless you're planning on drinking it, because your hands, then, my hands have been all in it, all in paper and stuff, so you may not want to drink it after you pour it back in the container. Another way to keep the blueberry juice is to put it in a spray bottle using a funnel. Look at this piece so far, though. Is that not a gorgeous color? This is the white crochet color. It's interesting how it's turned a different color than the paper did up here. Okay, so we're going to move on to the raspberry. And I'm just going to put my funnel right here into the mouth of my blueberry juice, so I'm not wasting any. I would normally just use all of this until I ran out or wanted to add more, till I had gotten enough paper, but I am wanting to move on so we can try our raspberries. Get another paper towel, and all I'm going to do is, I hate to waste this much juice, but I'm just going to wipe it up, and then I'm going to simply try the raspberry one, and we'll see how that turned out, since I'm using the berries. So once again, all I did was, you just need to reduce the berries down on the stove, let it come to a little bit of a boil, but when that happens, you want to immediately put it on simmer and let it simmer for a bit, and then while it's staying warm, you want to just sit it to the side and let it cool, and then you go through the strainer process again. Okay, so I'm going to just take some of my juice, and because this is so precious, I think I'm going to run it through my funnel when I pour it onto my mat. So I'm going to pour it through here. and it's not getting more on the mat than I need to, but let's see how the raspberry turns out. I'll just show you the technique again, and we'll try with raspberry, and we may have to add, I was thinking we may have to add a tiny bit of water to our raspberry juice, but I don't want to, if it's too thick. This is the experiment. I have not tried this tray method with the raspberry juice. So let's give it a go and do the same thing. I'm just going to lay it down and kind of swirl the stuff around and make sure it gets covered on the top, and then I'm going to flip it over. Wow, that is such a beautiful color. I love that. I so love that. Okay, so we're going to try the piece of trim, but I'm going to first of all just kind of, I wish that I had a chance to show you how this was going to look when it was dry, but you kind of got an idea when you saw the little sample that I showed earlier. It comes out kind of a purplish color. So I'm going to just let this dry. Okay, this juice feels a little bit thicker, so like I said, you may want to add a little bit of water to it, and I think this is going to also take longer to dry than the blueberry juice. But let me just try dipping. Let's see what happens when I dip what color this turns to as I dip this in the raspberry. Let's see. This is the same way you can do when you dye coffee. Use coffee dye, and you want to just use your strips, and you want to just mop up your coffee with some trims. And the one thing I like about neutral colored trims, the lighter neutral colors, is you can also change the color of them, especially using coffee dye or fruit juice or beet dye or whatever. So this one has a pretty little pink color to it. Let me put it on this back of this paper I used so you can kind of see. Okay, so here is this one, and I'll show you the difference between that and the blueberry. It's amazing that this blueberry one kept its color. Okay, so these are the off-whites. This is raspberry, this is the blueberry. So I'm just gonna lay these back down to dry. And then let's try the white one, and then we can wrap it up since you've gotten the gist of now, let me say one more thing. If your paper has, like this one is doing, has a little bit of puddling in it, after it's been sitting for several minutes, you can come in and just kind of get some of these little pools out with just by dabbing it with a paper towel. Okay, this one doesn't look bad, but this one may. Okay, I'm going to put you back up here before I make you seasick. I'm also curious to mix the blueberry and the raspberry together, so you could try that too, and I probably will, but not on this video. So last thing I want to do is to put my white piece of crochet in here. And then once again, I will funnel the leftover juice out that I don't use back into the container. And you do need to keep these refrigerated because if you leave them out, of course, that, you know what leaving out juice and all, eventually it'll last way longer in the fridge. And you can even pour it into a spray bottle, just funnel it into a spray bottle, and you can keep it out for a couple of days and it'll be fine like that. But here we go with the white trim, and I don't want to cross-contaminate, so let me just wipe my hands and I'll show you. We'll look at the trays. Not the trays, the different colors. Okay, so here are my white trims. One on the left is the raspberry. I'm going to do the same thing. Lay the raspberry one down that was beige already, or kind of off-white, and you can see the difference. You've got a pretty raspberry pink here, and then you've got kind of a vintage looking, a little bit more vintage looking on the off-white ones, but these are absolutely beautiful. And this is why, another thing that inspired me to do this is I am currently making I make customizable journals. They're available in my Etsy shop. But what I do is I'm going to make a book for this lady is going to preserve her recipes in a junk journal, and I thought, what better to do than have food items like beets and avocados and juices and coffee and tea to make her customized journal for preserving her recipes, family recipes. So I'm very excited to do that. And again, you can always funnel stuff into here, and the raspberry juice seems a little bit too thick to come through the sprayer, but I do know that the blueberry works. But pretty much that is all. I'm going to need to pat down my raspberry colored paper so we can take a peek at it while it's drying. And so basically, if you haven't checked out my Etsy shop, it's linked in the discussion below this video, and in most of my other videos as well. It's linked in the it's down in the description box. You can just click on it and it takes you straight to my Etsy store. And I really appreciate all of you who go in there and visit. And hello to all my new subscribers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that so many of you are taking this journey with me. And so that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. And let me show you how this is coming up. That's the raspberry. I hope the coloring can come out, but that's the blueberry back there. So I hope, again, wish